Welcome to the Pistol midweek mental break.
What's good? What's good, Mark? Middle of the week.
Whoop, whoop.
And as we speak, it is September 11th. Somber day for us.
Very.
18 years ago.
Wow.
It happened. 18 years.
That's
Do you remember
crazy.
where you were at?
Oh, for sure.
Were you working?
No, I was a stay-at-home mom at the time.
Oh,
You
wow.
weren't PD in 2001, huh?
No, I started 2002 because of September 11th.
Wow. You were one of those, huh?
I
I
was
was
one
already
of
working.
those.
Mark, were you
I was-
working?
Yeah, I was coming off graveyards, and day shift came in, and they said, they saw me doing paperwork, and they're like, "Do you even realize what's happening right now?" And I was like, "What?"
You were working bones. You're like, I got to go to sleep.
No, I was just trying to get my paperwork in, And they're like, "Come in here and look at the TV," and that's the first one had already hit, and then we saw the second one fly in. It's like,
Right.
oh, man.
Mm-hmm.
I watched the second plane hit.
Yeah.
I was working with come down from an interview, met a document crimes detective. Document crimes detectives are dry. They're not funny. They're just, they're the guys that chase the money all over. And we're sitting there in the PIO office, and as we're watching these, he's like, "Hey, plane hit the World Trade Center," and I was like, "Those things have been around for a while. Like, don't they know they're there?" He's like, "Yeah, it's weird." Well, we're looking at the monitors, and the second plane hits.
Right.
And he looks at me. I'll never forget. He looks at me, and he goes, "I think we just went to war." And that was eerie, not knowing what was going on. Ultimately, I get home. My wife, my sister-in-law are there. TVs are on. We're watching it. I stay awake for relatively a few more hours afterwards, trying to figure out what the hell's going on.
I stayed up all day watching it.
Yeah,
And
I actually watched those.
They called
fall.
us in on. They called us in and said we're doing extended shifts, so guys come back in, and we're doing extended shifts, and days off are canceled. And I just remember the public support. I worked down in the south part of the city I worked in, which was not really pro-police or nice, and all the people were out on the roadsides down Bethany Home Road with signs saying we love police and fire. And that night when I came in, that was out there, and I saw that, man, and I was just so overwhelmed with emotion. I took my car, turned on my lights and sirens, and just started doing donuts in the middle of Bethany
Are
Home
you
Road.
bullshitting?
I'm not kidding,
Are you
man.
serious?
Yeah, 59th Avenue and Bethany Home Road. There's this grungy apartment complex right there, and those people were just cheering it on, man. And I just kept doing donuts, and I had smoke flying everywhere, man. I just kept tearing those tires up, man. And then I got out and left the car running with the lights and everything on, and I went over and shook all those people's hands, man, and hugged a lot of them and
Yeah.
stuff. It was a good thing.
That was a weird time.
Oh, man.
I got to tell you, I watched those guys walk
Crazy.
in there.
Yeah, I actually lived in San Diego at the time, and it's a big military community.
Yeah.
And my ex-husband at the time, we had just he'd just gotten out of the military, and he was working for Border Patrol over there, and so we were still very connected. And so when it happened, I remember being home with my kids and getting ready to take one to school, and just watching it on the news and calling people back home, like, what in the hell is happening? And just the world changed that day, like
Yeah.
crazy.
It did. For the worst.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, Veronica, real quick, watching that as a civilian, because Mark and I were already PD at the time. What were you thinking?
So, I mean, you guys know I grew up in law enforcement, so there was always something with me anyways, and then I married into the military and stuff. So, patriotism has always been very huge for us. So I knew at that point I was going to have to start going back to work and make some changes in life and stuff. And so right away, that was just, that happened obviously September 11th. By November, I had already put in my applications to become a police officer.
Right on. Why not join the military?
Oh, no.
Fuck no.
No offense,
I'm more
but no.
domestic. I'm more domestic hero. All right. So we're back again for the...
Just to wrap that, hearts and prayers out to all the families that lost
Right.
people that
Yeah,
day.
absolutely.
And to those great people.
Yeah.
And to the civilians, too.
So we're back again for the midweek mental break, as Mark calls it, which is a great name.
It's perfect.
And we'll do follow-up from previous weeks. This week, September 11th, obviously. love and prayers to all the families out there, first responders, firefighters, police officers, civilians that were out there. But we'll catch up on all the stuff that we've done in the previous weeks. One of the things, Mark, and I know this will hit home for you, is the firefighter Kevin Thompson that we talked about. Here we are 18 years later. Jon Stewart's been on Capitol Hill. He's talked about these New York firefighters getting treatment for the cancer that they've got by fighting from all the nonsense that came down on September 11th. Kevin was a firefighter, or is a firefighter in Glendale PD. Even though the presumptive was that he got cancer from the job, they denied him.
Right.
Initially. And a big shout out to Channel 3.
Great job.
Yeah, they really probed the policies of Glendale PD, found that they did have the ability to override that dumbass doctor who said it was not job related. And they did.
Yeah.
They actually followed their own policies. And they've accepted the claim. They're going to reimburse him for all the money that he's spent getting treatment from this point past. And they've done the right thing. Me personally, Mark, I know you love Glendale, but I think they didn't have a choice but to actually own up to it. I see them changing the policies later. Their excuse was that they were given bad advice by their lawyers, which is fucking absurd to me.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. I don't deny. I'm not going to say that that's a lie, because I know that the lawyers that were supposedly representing the city in that same scenario with me for my PTSD claim, I was only the second officer in the history of that city to get that, to get a retirement medically like that. And that's exactly what they were advising him. They were advising our mayor, they were advising our council members, they were advising everybody in that board. Nope, this isn't covered. Nope, yeah, he's out.
Fuck them.
Yeah, and so then they gave me an opportunity to speak, and I talked and told them what I go through and what I suffered from and all that stuff. And the mayor couldn't take it, and she's just like, you know what? She says, I want another medical exam done. Elaine Scruggs was the mayor at the time. And because of her and because of my police advocate in there, I'm not going to name him, he's still an active guy, but a great champion for me and a great champion for police. They pushed it, and the mayor was the final deciding person on that. And she overturned it and said, no, we're going to cover this. So, yeah, I knew they had it. I knew they had the ability to do it. And that's why I said, hey, I'm going to blow up social media. I'm going to make this happen. And I'm going to let everybody know all the way up until Election Day if these guys don't cover him. And so, hats off to you guys. I'm glad that you did. And I actually do believe that that the council was giving you that advice, because I think they're bottom line driven.
They are, absolutely. And the
it's a
fucked
shame.
up part is if that was an officer that gave the wrong advice or the wrong decision,
Right.
they'd hang that motherfucker out to
for
dry.
sure.
In
Yep.
any industry,
Right.
Yep.
they would do that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And with that, fuck them lawyers.
Yeah.
They should have
Exactly.
known their own policies. It should have never got to that.
Yeah.
18 years later, after what fire and police, even some civilians have done for terrorists and going in there, those firefighters and those police officers that were out there shoveling all that shit should be compensated.
Yeah.
We've had New York firefighters that have died from cancer,
Yep.
and they're still fighting Capitol Hill to try to get the benefits they deserve.
Right.
And in this case, we've had 2 firefighters. One just recently passed last weekend from that cancer, and now we've got another one who's fighting, and it was just accepted, thank God. If it wasn't for Channel 3, and I think her name's Brianna Whitney, she actually went down there and started fucking going over their policies and shoved it in their face
Yeah.
before they realized, oh, we made a mistake. And that's shameful. It should never have. They should know their own policies. They expect their employees to know their policies. They expect their firefighters and their police officers to know policies, follow the policies, but they don't feel that they have to. And they're going to take the guidance of screwed up lawyers who don't know how to interpret the policies to make it happen.
I'm going to pin it all on those lawyers'
Fuck
shoulders.
them lawyers.
Exactly. And and Austin Peck, I was driving down I-10 on the way over here. It's Sunday, as the date of this recording. But we, and all of the traffic hazard things had his name and rest in
Right.
peace on there. And so
Yeah.
prayers to you and your family.
We did stop. I did see that. And again, he was doing his job that he loved.
Yeah.
He had 2 girls, a wife
Yeah.
that he left behind.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt trying to manage
Trying
this
to, yeah,
and pay for this himself.
something that should have
And-
been covered.
Yeah, and left on his family now.
Right.
So I
Something that should have been covered by the department
so
because they
So
want
do
us
we
to
know,
go in.
did he have a denied workers' comp claim for this?
His was
then?
accepted.
yeah,
Yeah.
but within a month or two after,
Yeah.
or prior
Okay.
to him passing away.
Yeah.
Prior to that, he
Um,
was paying for it all out of pocket.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
They say they care about first responders and all this nonsense, but you got to fight for even a presumptive.
Right.
Mhm.
So, definitely a shout out to Channel 3, that
Yeah.
reporter, Brianna Whitney, who actually went in, dug in deep, and didn't let it go.
Yep.
There should be more people like her that go
Right.
out and actually fight for us because they're not listening to us. Even on the books, its law says that it's presumptive, and they're still going to fucking fight us.
Mhm.
So, shout out to her. Moving forward, part of the midweek mental break that we've had. Also, for some reason in Glendale, you guys are just getting fucked sideways.
I'm telling you, it's a rough
I sent
year
you guys
and a
some
half.
videos, and I'll post them on here.
Yeah.
First off, we had a Glendale police officer. What we know for sure, this is factual. He contacts a subject who's in a occupied stolen vehicle. It's been reported stolen. The suspect starts making furtive movements.
And to break that down for people, that's your hands are rapidly moving away or into a
Some-
concealed area where the officer can't tell if you're like reaching down in between a seat to grab a weapon or something
Or
like
hide
that.
something.
Yeah. So go ahead.
So this is all on body cam.
Right.
He tells the subject to exit the vehicle. He refuses. The officer takes a control hold on him, tries to get him out. He starts pulling away. So now he's actively aggressive. He's
Resisting.
actively resisting the
Control
officers.
hold. Control hold is not a pain compliant hold.
No, it's not.
It's just a please-
OCCS.
Yeah, it's just come with me.
Escort hold.
Yeah.
It's an escort hold, exactly.
So he tries to get him out of the car. He's refusing.
Yeah, now when he pulls back, you've just broken the law
Right.
because
Right.
you are now actively, physically resisting the order of a police officer. And remember, this isn't a turn signal violation. This is a guy who's in a reported stolen vehicle. Go ahead. Sorry to slow it down.
No,
but-
that's all right. So the officer then tries to get him out. At some point, the suspect is out. A taser is deployed. It shows to be somewhat ineffective.
Yeah, when
And-
I heard the video, you hear a lot of, because he's overmodulating, he starts yelling, and it comes across as static on the
Right.
mic. That's not the taser deploying. The
That's
taser
just-
taser isn't deployed until he's out and on the ground, and,
Right.
and the officer can't get a handle on him, and he's already called for backup, and he needs
Right.
help. And all
So
that
he's
stuff.
actively resisting at this point.
Right.
We know he's in a stolen car. They take him out. They put him on the ground. He puts him on the ground. Left hand immediately goes under the stomach waistband area.
Right.
Remember, he's grabbed a hold of the taser.
Yes,
And
he's grabbed it with his hand.
right, and he's still resisting. The officer then applies strikes,
Right.
which is subjective. He's striking him with the taser. However, this is someone who has a propensity for violence. He's already shown that. He's in a stolen vehicle, and the officer starts to actively punch the subject until he gains compliance. Now, there is history behind this officer, so we're going to be very transparent. The officer does have some discipline issues. So that is, I'm not trying to hide that. I'm not trying to say it doesn't deserve it. This is a one call. He's doing everything, in my opinion, that should be done because he's actively aggressive. And so you'll see on the video when I put it up, they're fighting. As he's fighting, the subject then says, I'll comply. They get him into cuffs. At the end of the day,
Oh,
Mark,
at the end of the day,
that was for you, Mark.
you're a
I
liar.
did it for you.
That was a $20 bet I had.
No, I did it for you.
Hey.
At the end of the day,
I don't even know what's happening.
I'll tell you in a while, off camera. The officer gets him into cuffs, and they get him controlled. And somebody had recorded the video aside from the officer's Axon video. They said it was excessive. Now, aside from his previous history, whatever it was, if he was a bad officer, then you hired a bad officer. However, the video that I see, he did nothing wrong.
Mm-mm.
That guy was in a stolen vehicle. Whether the officer knew it or not, he grabs the officer's taser, which is a no-no. Do not touch my shit.
Well, that'd be like grabbing my gun.
Right?
That's a weapon, and if he gets that away from the officer, he can paralyze and incapacitate that officer. Then
Long
he
enough
has
to get
access
the
to his
gun.
guns.
Yep.
The officer's essentially dead if he gets
Absolutely.
if he gets tased because
So
he can be
what
killed
ends
with
up
his weapon.
happening is this officer resigns in lieu of being terminated for excessive force. Now, I'm not part of the internal. I don't know the ins and outs.
I'm
but
not either, but I can tell you it videoed out terribly.
It did.
And
But you know what?
Here's one reason. Here's my thing on that, is the suspect appears to have. He sounds like he's possibly mentally challenged.
Right.
However, I have contacted numerous people that were either intoxicated with alcohol, but especially drugs.
Right.
And you think that person is a mentally handicapped person, mentally challenged person, and just comes to find out, no, he's just in the hardcore throes of a bad
Right.
bunch of methamphetamine.
And per the defendant's lawyer, he had a learning disability
Sure.
in elementary
And-
school.
Okay, and
That's
and-
what they said.
Yeah, I get it. And I've also had people who'd feign some sort of mental confusion,
Right.
mental handicap stuff, and then get a jump on me.
Feign.
And
What is feign? Fake?
fake?
Yes.
All right, why don't you just say fake?
Well,
So,
like feigning an injury.
right. So,
Fake.
anyways.
I know
that's-
what you meant, Mark.
That's part of where we're going with this. Now, the second video, you'll see in this part of the conversation, I'm going to add the Glendale officer fighting with the suspect. And then, now the second part of that is the same week or the week prior, an LA sheriff's officer, a deputy, female, encounters a domestic violence person. What we know for sure, which is factual, is that the mom calls and says that her son is there and being aggressive. What you're going to see in this video, and I know you've seen it, both you and Veronica, Mark, is a female deputy arriving. She contacts the subject or suspect.
Mm-hmm.
He immediately starts to land blows, punches straight to the face. She immediately is taking these hits. She takes out her weapon. He grabs her weapon. They go to the ground. One shot is fired. He commandeers her weapon. She then gets up, runs
Why
away.
don't you just say takes it away from her? Commandeers.
Because I want to use big words like you, Mark.
Well, feign is a small word.
That's a big word.
Commandeer's got a lot of syllables.
Yeah. So
Commander.
he
Commandeer.
takes her weapon.
Thank you.
It almost looks like she lets it go. I'm not sure. I'm not going to say one way or the other, but she's on her back.
I think at that point she realized I've lost that,
Yeah.
and now I want to
So what you're going to see is
tactically retreat or whatever.
she
you wanna
lets
call
go, or she whatever
Right.
relinquishes
Yeah.
the weapon, gets up, runs away. He then chambers around, fires 3 or 4 rounds at her
it as she's running.
as she's running away. Misses her. Fortunately, her backup arrives. In the video, you're actually going to see his hands go up, but he ends up dropping the weapon towards them. They shoot, incapacitate him. He doesn't die,
Yeah.
but 2 different scenarios. And the reason I brought these up for the midweek was this officer in Glendale, somebody touches his taser, grabs it, it's an ass beating.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Well, his life is in jeopardy.
Period.
The officer's
Period.
life is in jeopardy.
Right. And you see what happens when this has nothing to do with gender. This has everything to do with the fact that when somebody grabs your shit, it's an ass beating.
That's how bad it's going to go.
Exactly.
The L.A. County is exactly how the Glendale situation
Would have
Could have
gone.
Yeah.
Right.
Could have gone.
Yep.
And thank God it didn't. But it certainly could have. Had he taken that taser, turned it around,
And fired it.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, of course, the cartridge and all that stuff, we know the tactics of that and the logistics
Right.
of that. But regardless, I mean, he could have incapacitated the officer.
Right.
And the point is don't let go of that weapon.
Fuck no.
You lose that
You
weapon.
beat the shit out of him
you-
until he's incapacitated.
You have to give the level of force to stop that weapon from leaving you
Right.
and your control.
Right.
And that officer in L.A. would have done the exact same thing. She would have shot that man as many times as she needed to stop him from losing
Right.
control of that weapon. Same thing with the Glendale officer. He would have done whatever he had to do, and he did, to stop that and to stop that. I don't know. It's just
So
a thumbs down on that Glendale decision. I'm gonna
Yeah.
tell you right now.
He
Not
should have never
happy
left.
No, I should. Not happy with that at all.
right. So
happy.
I appreciate you guys coming out for the midweek mental break. And again, thoughts and condolences to everyone involved in September 11th.
Yeah.
As this gets released on September 11th.
Right.
Do not forget your firefighters, police officers, general first responders, and anyone that helped out that day. Veronica, even though you were a civilian at the time, I know your heart was in the right place. We were working that day, and mass confusion.
Yeah.
So
Was.
I appreciate you guys coming out, and we'll see you next week.